The ocean was quiet again, but not naturally quiet. It was the kind of silence that follows a scream, a silence that vibrates with the echo of something enormous returning to the dark. The crew stood scattered on the deck, drenched in fog and seawater, each one frozen in shock at what had just occurred. Minutes ago, something had climbed out of a void door onto their ship, and then something far larger, far more terrifying, had risen from beneath the surface, shaking the vessel like a toy. Now only the aftermath remained. The void door lay on its side, cold and lifeless, the porthole frozen solid from the inside. Frost crawled across the deck in thin, spidery veins. The creature that had emerged through the door, the pale, elongated figure, was gone, dissolved into the mist like a breath, leaving a dying body. The only proof it had ever existed were the deep, frozen footprints it left behind. Footprints that ended abruptly and vanished into nothing. The historian crouched beside one of them, fingers trembling as he hovered a hand over the frozen indentation. The ice steamed faintly under the moonlight, releasing thin wisps, as if the ground itself were trying to forget what had stood there. "It was afraid," he whispered. No one responded. The captain stared at the dark, rippling ocean with the 1,000-yard stare of someone who had seen something no human mind is built to process. The sonar operator checked the screen repeatedly, though it barely flickered with weak power. "Whatever rose from below, it's gone. It descended fast. Too fast. We lost the signal." The captain spoke without turning his head. "Gone. Or hiding." The historian shook his head. "Not hiding. Retreating. That thing wasn't chasing us. It was hunting the creature that came through the door." The operator swallowed. "Then what was that thing? The one that stepped out?" The historian stood slowly. "A warning." He looked at the void door. "No. A messenger." A sudden wind swept across the deck, scattering loose papers, rattling door hinges, making the metal groan. The crew instinctively backed away from the void door as frost along its frame cracked loudly. The engineer pointed at it nervously. "We're not keeping that thing on this ship." The captain finally turned around. "We're not touching it. Not until we know what it is." The historian stepped closer to the door, shining his flashlight into the porthole. But there was nothing now. No light, no movement, no breath. Just absolute darkness pressed against the glass. "This door wasn't meant to be opened," he said softly. "It wasn't meant for us at all." The operator nodded. "It only opened because the drone went inside the Titanic. And because it sensed something," the historian added. Something waking up, everyone fell silent. Then the deck shifted. Just a small tilt, barely noticeable, the kind ships make when adjusting to currents. But this wasn't that. This was heavier, sharper, deliberate. The captain frowned. "Was that the engines?" "No, sir," the engineer replied. "Engines are still offline." The deck tilted again, harder. A metallic groan twisted upward from the lower hull. Something pushed the ship from below. The sonar operator ran back to the monitor. It flickered violently, then stabilized just long enough to display a blurry shape beneath them. A shape that wasn't descending anymore. A shape that wasn't rising either. It was circling. "What the—" "It came back," the operator whispered. The historian closed his eyes. "No, that's not the same one." The operator froze. "Then what is it?" The historian pointed toward the fog-covered door. "The creature that helped us. The one that stepped through. It wasn't trying to escape." He swallowed hard. "It was trying to keep the door shut." Another low groan rolled under the ship, deeper, closer. The captain's voice hardened. "Everyone inside, now." They rushed toward the interior hatch. The wind rose suddenly, whipping the fog into violent spirals across the deck. The historian grabbed the void door instinctively as he passed, not to open it, but to steady himself. The moment his fingers brushed the metal, a shock of cold flooded his arm. He gasped, his vision blurred. For one split second, he wasn't seeing the deck. He was seeing inside the void, a black corridor, bent metal, shadows moving along the walls. Not one creature, dozens, all retreating deeper into the darkness, running, fleeing, from something much larger behind them. The historian stumbled backward, collapsing to the floor. "Help," he whispered weakly. The captain rushed to him. "What happened?" The historian pointed at the door, shaking violently. His voice barely formed the words. "They weren't trying to reach us." He swallowed hard, breath trembling. "They were trying to get away." Another hit struck the hull. Boom, much closer this time. The deck lights flickered. Seawater sprayed upward through a crack in the railing. The sonar beeped again, showing the shape directly beneath them, rising slowly, waiting. The captain shouted, "Get below deck, now!" But as the crew scrambled inside, the historian turned toward the void door one last time. And he heard it. A whisper, thin, cold, desperate. "Don't let it open." Then the fog thickened violently, as if something on the other side was pushing to come through again. But the historian knew better. This wasn't something trying to enter. This was something trying to escape. Part 4 had only begun, and the real threat had not yet shown its face. The crew slammed the interior hatch shut, locking themselves inside as another thunderous vibration rolled through the hull. The lights inside flickered in long, agonizing pulses, before stabilizing into a weak, ghostly glow. The entire ship creaked under the pressure, not from the ocean, but from something far more deliberate, pressing against it from below. The historian leaned against the wall, still trembling from the vision he'd glimpsed when he touched the void door. His breathing was uneven, his pulse erratic, his skin pale as frost. The captain crouched beside him. "What did you see?" The historian wiped cold sweat from his brow. "It wasn't attacking us. The creatures in the void. They were running from something. Something enormous." The crew exchanged terrified glances. The sonar operator shouted from the control panel. "Sir, object under the hull just stopped moving." The captain turned sharply. "Stopped? Where?" The sonar screen flickered violently as the ocean floor static scrambled, then cleared just long enough to reveal a horrifying outline beneath the ship. The shape was massive, wider than the Titanic's bow, too large for any sea creature known to science, and motionless, just waiting. The historian whispered, "It followed the door." As if responding to his words, the sonar blinked again. A single pulse, deep, resonant, so powerful the ship vibrated. The engineer shook his head. "That's not echo. That's signaling." The captain narrowed his eyes. "Signaling who?" Before anyone could answer, the entire ship jerked upward, not violently, but as if being gently lifted by something terrifyingly strong. Loose tools clattered across the floor. Coffee mugs fell and shattered. The historian's breath hitched in his throat. The sonar operator spoke again, voice cracking. "It's lifting us. It's literally lifting the ship." Panic spread like wildfire. "No, that's impossible. Engines are dead. Ballast isn't responding. We're not sinking. It's pushing us upward." The captain gripped the railing. "It's testing our weight. Testing the hull. Testing us." The historian shook his head violently. "No, it's testing the door." Those words chilled the crew more than the freezing air. The captain stared. "What do you mean?" The historian steadied his trembling voice. "The creature that came out of the void sealed the door because something else, something far worse, was trying to follow it." He pointed toward the deck above them. "That thing wants the door open." The silence, after his words, was suffocating. Then, "Creak!" A long, metallic tearing sound crawled through the hull. Everyone froze. The engineer checked the pressure gauges. "The hull. It's being squeezed," the captain barked. "Whatever's down there, it wants something inside that door." Before he could finish, the sonar alarm shrieked. New object detected. Approaching fast. "What now?" the operator shouted. The screen flickered. A second shape appeared beside the first. Smaller than the giant below them, but still enormous, moving erratically. The historian's face went white. "It's not alone," the ocean roared. The ship shuddered. Then, out of nowhere, a sharp knock echoed through the ventilation shafts. Knock. Not soft, not curious. A warning. It came again. Knock. 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 The exact pattern the crew had heard from the first creature inside the Titanic. Everyone turned toward the source. The engine corridor. Fog seeped under the door. The captain's voice hardened. "Secure that area." But before anyone could take a step, boom! A massive impact slammed from below. The hull dented upward by several inches, metal groaning in agony. The historian grabbed the railing to stay upright. The sonar officer screamed, "The big one is moving! It's coming up!" The ship lurched upward again. The historian whispered in horror, "It's trying to break the boundary between the void and the surface." The lights dimmed. Something enormous scraped along the hull, circling it. The captain shouted, "Brace yourselves!" The scraping grew louder, faster, spiraling upward like a tornado of metal, tearing reality itself. The historian stared at the ceiling. "It's not after us," he swallowed. "It's after the door." And just as he spoke those words, a deafening metallic shriek erupted above them. The historian looked up in horror. The deck hatch, the one they had locked behind them, was bulging inward. Something was lifting it, something from the deck, something that didn't need permission to enter anymore. The captain whispered, voice breaking, "No, no, it can't be." And then the hatch bent fully inward. Cold fog poured down the stairs. And standing in the doorway, half-formed, trembling, nearly torn apart by whatever hunted it, was the creature they thought had disappeared. Its hollow eyes flickered toward the crew, and it whispered with a voice full of terror, "Help! Close a door!" before collapsing to the floor. The thing beneath the ship had followed it, and it was coming. The creature collapsed at the base of the stairwell, its elongated limbs trembling, its translucent skin flickering like a dying fluorescent light. Fog poured off its body in thin, ragged breaths. The crew instinctively backed away, but this time, the creature wasn't advancing. It was bleeding. Not with blood, but with something darker, a dense black mist leaking from a long tear across its ribs. The wound glowed faintly, pulsing like a light trapped inside a bruise. The historian edged forward, horrified and fascinated. "It's injured." The captain grabbed his shoulder. "Stay back!" But the creature lifted its head, weakly, slowly, and for the first time since they'd seen it, its hollow eyes were not frightening. They were pleading. The creature's mouth, or the place where a mouth should be, quivered and tore slightly, opening just enough to shape sound. A voice seeped out, layered and watery, like someone speaking underwater through a broken radio. "Close, the way." The historian knelt despite the captain's warning. "You want us to close the door?" "But we did." "The void door shut." The creature shook its head violently, a jarring, unnatural movement. Its limbs twitched as if electricity shot through it. It lifted a trembling finger and pointed upward, through the ceiling, through the deck, to where the door still lay outside. The historian's breath caught. "No, no, it can't mean that." The creature spoke again, each word a struggle. "Door, still open. Inside." The engineer staggered back. "Inside? Inside what?" The creature convulsed, body arching painfully, fog erupting from its chest, like steam from a pressure valve. A shrill, metallic howl echoed from deep below the ship. The much larger creature was rising again. The historian grabbed the creature's hand, cold as ice, thin as paper. "Tell us, what is inside the void? What is coming?" The creature's eyes flickered rapidly, like lights failing. Then, with agonizing effort, it formed a single, broken word. "Hunter." The air went silent. Even the ocean outside seemed to stop moving. A deep rumble vibrated through the hull. The sonar operator screamed, "The large signature! It's surfacing fast!" The creature's body jerked. It arched its neck. It pointed its trembling arm toward the void door above. "Open! Close! Close! Close!" Before it could finish, the floor underneath them buckled as another catastrophic impact slammed into the hull. Boom! The ship lifted off the water by nearly a meter. People were thrown across the room. Metal beams cracked. Pipes burst, spraying freezing mist. The creature was flung against the wall, its body cracking like thin porcelain. The historian crawled to it, shouting over the chaos. "What does it want? How do we close it?" The creature's hand shot up and gripped his wrist. Hard. Too hard. Its hollow eyes were wide with pure terror. "The hunter follows the scent. Your drone. Your world." The historian's heart stopped. "It's following the drone?" The creature gave the smallest nod, then whispered, "Destroy, door, or hunter. Comes." The captain yelled over the roar of the failing hull. "How do we destroy it?" The creature's answer came weak, fading like breath, leaving a collapsing lung. "Light, inside. The door. Burns. The way. Light." The drone emitted unnatural light. Light that disturbed the void. Light that woke the messenger creature. The historian understood. "We need to activate the drone inside the void door." The engineer jerked his head toward him. "But it's dead. And the door is on the deck in the middle of this storm." The sonar operator screamed, "The hunter is breaching. 150 meters. 180. The ship shook, as if a mountain were colliding with it. The creature on the floor convulsed, then slowly dissolved into fog, its final whisper trailing off as its body disintegrated. "Close the way." Then it vanished, gone. The lights flickered violently. The sonar blared, "Impact imminent." The historian stood, breath shaking, face pale. He spoke the words no one wanted to hear. "We have one chance." He pointed toward the deck above, toward the void door. "We take the drone to the door, turn it on, and seal the void before the hunter crosses over." The captain looked around the room, at the terror, the destruction, the shaking hull. "Gear up. Everyone who can move, with me. We end this." But outside, the ocean split open in a column of rising foam. Something enormous was arriving. The ship tilted, as if the ocean itself had been lifted underneath it. A massive swell rose, dark and towering, and the vessel climbed its side like a helpless cork caught in a tsunami. Alarms blared, metal screamed, loose equipment slammed against walls as gravity shifted wildly. The captain steadied himself on a handrail. "Move! We get to the deck! Now!" The historian clutched the drone, still cold, still inert, but glowing faintly inside its cracked casing, as though responding to the creature's final plea. The team charged up the staircase. Every step vibrated violently under their boots as something enormous crashed repeatedly against the hull below. When they burst onto the deck, they froze. Fog whipped across the surface like torn sheets of ice. The void door lay exactly where they left it, half frosted, half glowing, humming softly as if awakening. But beyond it, the ocean was rising, literally rising. A massive column of seawater swelled upward in a spiraling vortex, glowing with faint blue veins. The same eerie glow the void emitted. The water bent around something climbing through it. The engineer's voice cracked. "Oh my God, it's huge!" A shadow appeared inside the vortex, long, massive, multi-limbed. But there was no mistaking it. This wasn't a creature shaped by the ocean. It was shaped by something else, something deeper. The captain grabbed the historian's arm. "Go! Get the drone to the door! Do it now!" The historian nodded, sprinting across the slick deck. The wind blew so hard it ripped at his clothes, nearly hurling him sideways. The void door pulsed with an unnatural heartbeat, glowing brighter as he approached. Behind him, the vortex reached its peak. And then the hunter breached. A massive limb, translucent and ridged like deep-sea glass, erupted from the water, slamming against the side of the ship with a wet, thunderous impact. The railings crumpled like paper. The crew screamed as the vessel lurched violently to starboard. The historian fell to his knees, the drone nearly slipping from his grasp. Another limb shot upward, thicker, longer, bending in impossible joints, reaching toward the sky before snapping down toward the deck. The captain shouted, "Move! Everyone move!" The limb crashed onto the deck, shattering lights and ripping open the flooring. Splinters of steel flew through the air like shrapnel. The hunter pulled itself higher. And then the crew saw its silhouette. A towering mass, shifting, glowing from within. Multiple limbs extending and retracting, like something trying to remember the shape of a body it once had. The historian forced himself forward, crawling toward the void door. Fog curled around his hands, stinging his skin with frost. He reached the frame. The drone pulsed. The void door pulsed back. And for a moment, just a moment, the door on the deck looked exactly like it had inside the Titanic. Frozen, impossible, waiting. The historian shoved the drone into the center of the doorway. It clicked into place as if pulled by magnetism. The glow intensified. The hunter roared. Not a sound. A pressure. A vibration that made teeth rattle and bones ache. The vortex expanded violently as the creature's massive head, or what resembled one, pushed through the frothing water. The operator screamed from behind. "It's coming on deck! Hurry!" The historian pressed his palm against the drone's core, remembering the creature's final words. "Light. Inside. The door. Burns the way." He slammed the emergency activation switch. The drone lit up. White blue light exploded outward, slashing through the fog, slicing through the mist, piercing the sky. The void door reacted instantly. Its steel vibrated. The frost melted. The porthole brightened with a blinding bloom of light that shot a vertical beam into the sky like a beacon. The hunter screeched, a pure, deafening rejection of the light, and lashed out at the deck with 3 limbs at once. Crash! The deck cracked open. Crew members were thrown violently. The historian barely held onto the doorframe as the ship tilted at a sickening angle. The drone's light grew brighter, almost too bright to look at. The hunter's limbs jerked violently, bending backwards, twisting, as if fighting an invisible force. It reared back to strike again. But the void door pulsed. A second beam of light blasted outward, hitting the hunter square in the center of its multi-limbed mass. The creature recoiled, shrieking in inhuman agony. The historian pushed harder. "Close!" he shouted, voice breaking. "Close the way!" The door began to move, slowly, fighting the pressure of the void, fighting the force of the deep. The hunter lunged again. Another limb crashed down, inches from the historian. He cried out as steel buckled next to him. The captain fired a flare, screaming, "Keep going! Don't stop!" The drone's light surged one final time, a blinding blast that lit the entire deck like daylight. The void door slammed shut. Boom! A shockwave flattened everyone on deck. The hunter's limbs snapped backward, violently, as the beam of light sucked into itself. The creature screamed and plunged downward, pulled into the ocean with meteoric force. vanishing into a swirling vortex of collapsing water. Silence. Smoke drifted from the deck. Steam rose from the drone. The void door lay still. Dark. The historian collapsed to his knees. The crew stared at the ocean. The hunter was gone. Or at least, it had been sent back. But as the historian lifted his gaze toward the void door, he froze. A crack had formed across the porthole. Thin, fresh, growing. He whispered. The storm around the ship died in an instant. Not gradually, not naturally. It simply stopped. The ocean calmed. The wind settled. Fog slid quietly across the deck, like a curtain falling after the final act of a play. But the silence wasn't peaceful. It was dead. A silence that felt listening. The crew pulled themselves up from the battered deck. Metal was twisted. Railings were mangled. Sections of the flooring had buckled inward, like crushed paper. But somehow, impossibly, the ship still floated. The historian remained kneeling in front of the void door, chest heaving, trembling violently. The drone lay in the center of the frame, still glowing faintly, but cracked in multiple places. Smoke curled from its vents. A soft, dying hum vibrated inside its core, like the last heartbeat of a machine that had given everything it had. The captain approached slowly. You did it. Whatever that thing was, you forced it back. The historian didn't answer. He only stared at the void door, at the crack across the porthole, thin, branching like a fracture in ice, growing. The captain followed his gaze. Is it still active? The historian shook his head slowly. No, not active. A beat. Damaged. The engineer knelt beside him, flashlight trembling. He ran the light across the metal frame. Deep fissures ran along the edges, like the door had been struck from the inside. What happened to it? He whispered. The historian swallowed hard. The hunter wasn't trying to force the door open when it attacked. He exhaled shakily. It was trying to break it. The crew turned sharply. Break it? Why? The historian looked up, his voice barely audible. Because if the door breaks, the void behind it doesn't just open. He hesitated. It collapses. Into this world. A long silence fell. The sonar operator checked his equipment. The scanners were weak, damaged, barely operational, but enough to show the hunter's signature descending rapidly into the deep. Whatever that thing was, the operator said, it's going down fast, almost, like it's hiding, the historian finished. If the door collapses, anything connected to it, anything born inside the void, is at risk, even the hunter. A realization hit them all at once. The hunter wasn't protecting the humans. It wasn't attacking them either. It was fighting for its own survival, because the void was unstable. The drone had destabilized it. The door was the only thing holding the boundary together. And now, that door was fracturing. A deep, metallic groan rose from the floor beneath them. Not from the ship, from the door. Microfractures spread across the frame like black veins. The porthole pulsed once, faintly, as if something behind it pressed a hand against the glass. Everyone stepped back instinctively. No, the historian whispered. No more. Not again. The porthole fogged from inside. A breath. The same breath the drone had heard deep inside the Titanic. But this time, the breath sounded weaker, more desperate, more human. The historian leaned closer without thinking, heart pounding. Inside the fog, a shape formed. Not the creature, not the hunter. A face, a human face. Eyes wide, terrified. Mouth frozen in a silent scream. The historian recoiled. Someone's in there! But the captain spun him around. No, that can't be a person. That door leads nowhere. The historian shook his head. No, it leads somewhere. But that place might not be what we think it is. If the hunter and the creature were fleeing something, then whatever is deeper in that void. He didn't finish his sentence, because the porthole cracked again. Crack. A jagged line split across the glass. Thin streams of cold fog hissed outward. The crack widened. Crack! The historian backed away. No! No, no, no! The door is failing, the captain shouted. Get away from it! The crack reached the edge of the porthole. A deep rumble echoed from within the void. The historian's eyes went wide with horror. They're not trying to come out, he pointed at the door. They're trying to get away from whatever is coming behind them. The ocean surged suddenly, as if something enormous shifted far below. The porthole blew inward. Boom! A shockwave of freezing fog blasted across the deck, knocking the crew to the ground. The void door slammed flat, its frame glowing white-hot. The drone hummed violently, lights flaring in a desperate final surge. The crack reached the center of the door. The historian screamed, "The door is going to collapse! Run!" But before anyone could move, a sound came from inside the void. Not a creature, not a breath, not a voice. A footstep, slow, deliberate, heavy enough to shake the broken frame. Another footstep, closer. The historian whispered, voice breaking, "Oh God! It's not the creature. It's not the hunter." A third footstep, closer still. The thing they were running from. It followed them to the door. The door glowed white, then black, then silence. The light died. The crack stopped growing. The door froze, solid, cold, still. The historian stepped toward it, breath trembling. "Is it over?" The captain didn't blink. No. He looked at the door's fractured edge. "We didn't close anything." His voice grew darker. "We only slowed it." The wind shifted. The ocean vibrated. And far below them, the sonar, barely working, blinked one final message. "Unknown signature detected." Rising again, the historian whispered,